A lot of you do know Aoibéann. She's been a constant in terms of the project for the last 18 months, and she's been visiting the farmers, the farms, and meeting all the participants and so forth. And what she'll be presenting now is the evidence base, the research that has underpinned the project, and providing some of the hard facts and figures and the progress and the potential that the project has produced over the 3-year period. This is the major component, not the only component, as David has already identified, one of the major components that DARD through CAFRE has supported in terms of the project. So as I say, not to keep people back, and we're conscious of time. Aoibéann.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully there's been enough of a gap between Shane and myself that I might impress. So my part of the day is to focus on the story, and as Jim said, I have longer than 10 minutes, but I could talk all day. I could paper the walls with quotes from the brilliant participants, the brilliant farmers and the brilliant supporters who were engaged in the project. So, as Roy said, my job is to go through the evidence base as we found it. So just a bit of outline of what my presentation will cover. I'll go into a bit of detail on the piloting experience in terms of facts and figures, a bit deeper than the initial overview gave in terms of the pilot farms, the participants, the activities and the support that was available. The research methods, just the research methods that were used with the different stakeholders in the project. And then the SoFAB experience, what we found from the participants, from the farmers, in terms of benefits, challenges and testimonials for support of the project. And then we're going to finish with a social farm model as we view it based on the experience of the SoFAB project. So just for the rest of my talk, I'll be using terms, so I felt it would be important just to highlight who I'm talking about when I say different words. So when I refer to participant, it's the individuals who were supported to engage in social farming, who were on the farms. Pilot farmer, as Jim said, we went through a selection recruitment process, so these were the 20 farmers who were part of the recruitment process and became our pilot farmers. And participant supporters, these were the people that could have been a staff member, a parent or a carer of the participants who were on the farm, who either provided support on the farm or were the people at the end of the phone. So they were also involved in the research. So just, I know at the back you'll not be able to see the names of the different areas where the farms were, but hopefully you can see the dots. And if you just imagine the circle right up to Mallinhead down to South Leitrim, you can maybe get a sense of all the miles myself and Paul travelled over a year and a half. So just in terms of the next slide, there's a breakdown per county. So 11 out of the 12 counties in the project region were represented by a farm. The most number we had was 3 farms in County Down and 3 in County Cavan. Just in terms of health region, not necessarily where the participants came from, but just where the farms were located. 4 of the 5 health trusts in the north were represented, and 2 regions of the HSE, Dublin North East and Dublin West, were represented. There was involvement of other service providers, and that will be clear in further slides. And we had, which we found very positive, cross-border links on 2 farms. So 2 farms in Fermanagh had participants who were coming from services in the south, which was very positive. So just in terms of the participants, there was 66 participants across 20 farms. Participants were term participants once they had their initial farm visit or met with the farmer in their service, and then been on the farm for more than 5 visits. So we had a couple of participants who only got as far as the farm visit, and it decided for different reasons to not come on to the project. So these 66 participants all completed 5 visits or more, and obviously when I talk about attendance, you'll see that the high rate of attendance. So just in terms of a breakdown in terms of service, gender and jurisdiction. In terms of service, we had 37 participants coming from a learned disability background and 29 on a journey of recovery from mental health issue. We had, you'll just see the slight imbalance in terms of male and female. We had 64 male and 2 brilliant women. The males were all right too. And in terms of jurisdiction, we had 38 people from the Republic and 28 from the North. So just in terms of the 20 farms, 8 farms supported people with a learned disability, 6 supported people on a journey of recovery from mental health, and the remaining 6 had participants from both service backgrounds. The participants that were supported on farms ranged from 2 to 5. So 2 was our minimum, 5 was our maximum, but 12 supported 3. So the most common was 12 farms who had 3 participants. 5 farms operated twice a week, so the remaining 15 operated 1 visit a week. And the duration of the visit ranged from 2.5 hours to 8 hours, which was tailored to fit the participant. If the participant was happy with 2.5 hours, that's what happened on the farm, but the most common was a 5-hour day. So there was a bit of variation in that, which was to suit the farmer and to suit the participant. So just this next slide focuses on farm support. That pie chart highlights the different levels of support, but I'll stress that all 20 farmers had someone at the end of the phone. There was support for all 20 farmers from their service contacts and also from the SoFAB team. But in terms of having a support worker on the farm, you can see the yellow, the biggest dimension of the pie chart. 9 farms had no support on the farm with the farmer for the participants. 5 had support for the duration of all their visits. So participants were supported each visit by a support worker. 3 had a support worker for less than 5 visits. So that was where the support worker was there as a guide in, as an ease in into the project, and they were faded out. And the remaining 3 had some between 5 visits and 5 and 10 visits. So it was where participants needed that bit more support to settle into the environment. So just in terms of, I said earlier about the different regions that the farms were in, this just gives a breakdown on where the participants actually came from. So you can see in the north, I know it might be a bit small at the back, so these slides we made available. We went beyond the 4 health trusts. So we had participants who came from NAVE, Northern Ireland Association for Mental Health, through their Beacon Centre in Armagh. We had participants from Destin in Derry coming out to our farm in Claudy, and we had participants from Positive Futures. So we went to where the need was, where the participant choice was. We engaged with services beyond the health trust, and the same in the south. So we had participants from the HSE, directly from the HSE 2 regions, Dublin, North East and West, and also from, as you can see, St John of God's, National Learning Network, Employability, Rehab Care, Step Right to Work, and Northwest Parents and Friends. So they were positive. That was a positive experience from the project, that we engaged with so many different service providers throughout the project to recruit the participants for the project. So participant attendance, I know Jim has gave the overall figure at 83%. Just in terms of further breakdown, the learning disability participant average was 88%, and the mental health participant average was 76%. So you can see the learning disability was just above average and mental health was just below, which reflected where the participants were in their lives. For some reasons, week on week, they maybe couldn't attend. But the support workers were very positive and emphasised the fact that the participants we had on our farm, some would have dropped off a lot sooner in projects, maybe would have missed 2-3 days of their normal average week and then never missed a day for us. So that was a positive in terms of the high attendance figures. So just further on, 16 participants, which is massive, had 100% attendance, and a further 21 had attendance which was 90% or over. So you can see that block of 37 participants is a big chunk of the 66 who really never really missed a day. And then we had 15 participants who had a period of absence, which was defined as missing more than 3 consecutive visits. So that was where the high percentage of mental health participants maybe had periods of absence during the project, maybe even 2-3 periods of absence, but then with help, with support from the SoFAB team, from the farmers themselves staying engaged with their support worker, they were able to re-engage in the project in some cases. So just now, the next couple of slides after this one will be the important bits in terms of pictures of the different experiences that the participants had on the farms. So this is just a general slide in terms of the activities they were able to get involved in. So as you can see, anything to do with animals, husbandry, feeding and care, maintenance and restoration, the different elements of that on the farm in terms of buildings, farm areas, in terms of bringing them back to life, and machinery. Then horticulture projects, conservation and woodland management, woodwork and green work activities that you'll see in some of the photos, and crafts and foraging and baking, which were sort of supplementary activities but which the participants really enjoyed on some of the farms. So we're just going to come up on a couple of collages. So you can see in this one, this is really about all the animals. So this is 4 different farms, so you get to see that there was sheep, goats, cows and horses. So, and as well as the participants and Shane not being from a farming background, I got to learn what these animals actually do and different things about them. So the next one is fruit picking in the different orchards that the farmers had. This was the horticultural work, so the different polytunnels on the left and right at the top, and planting seeds for acorns on the bottom, and clearing different hedgerows and sprucing the farm up. This was a specific project on Wilson's Farm in County Monaghan, where you can see from left to right the transition from for the tractor, and this was a major thing for the 3 participants on that farm. That's really all they talked about to me, was this tractor and getting the tractor done. And for some other people it was driving a tractor, but these really just wanted the tractor done and ready to go. So it was a major project, and you can see the 3 participants working on the project and the end result, which was a great thing for the participants, for Robert as his farmer, and for his family, that tractor was back, the first tractor that was ever on the farm. It was a big project for them. And the next project is also about, next picture is also about projects, so specific projects that the participants were involved in terms of woodwork and different things. So the 2 top projects were bridges. The one on the left was one that was restored. The one on the right, a farm in County Cavan, where they built the bridge and were involved in landscaping a whole area. The bottom the bottom picture on the right was a tree house that the participants helped to build on a farm in County Fermanagh for the farmers' 2 sons. So that was something they felt they were giving back to the farm family. And the bottom left was a green woodwork project. So everything was done with green woodwork principles, so they got to learn the different elements of that project. So then this next slide, I know we've talked about projects and I've shown you all the different things, and this slide reflects what Jim talked about, the jobs, the normal routine activities on the farm that the farmer maybe thinks, oh no, not again, but the participants really got involved and enjoyed. So we had painting, just general clearing of areas, chopping wood and taking down the turf from the mountain. So that, general jobs that were part of the everyday farming year became big activities for our participants. The last slide in terms of activities shows the general supplementary activities that the participants got involved in. So you can see on the left, they got involved in baking in Liz's farm in County Louth. In the middle, you can see Mary, who's going to talk later, with her participant baking as well. And the picture on the right is bird boxes from a farm in County Donegal. That was one of their projects. So research methods, I'll just quickly brief you on the research methods that were used. For the participants, it says 62. So 62 participants of the total 66 were interviewed for different reasons. 4 participants weren't available for interview, so the vast majority of participants were interviewed, and also I would have spent time, days or hours on the farm observing them, the interactions between the participants and between the farmer and the activities they got involved in. The farmers were sick of the sight of me. They were interviewed 3 times. So at the beginning, the middle, a progress report in the middle, and at the end. So thankfully they had signed up on their application form, they had to speak to me, so I kept calling. And also important in terms of a record of what happened on the farms, each farmer kept a logbook, which are a brilliant resource, and you could do a presentation on just the logbooks. And it'll have to be something that is distilled out of, it focused on learning points and progression on relationships with the participants, and they're a really good insight. It wasn't just a couple of words. Every visit had a story from the farmers. And then 39 participant supporters were interviewed. So as I said, they were the support staff or the parent or carer. And just going back, the next part of the presentation, which is the main bulk of the presentation, is going to focus on what came out of that research, what was the experience for the participants and for the farmers, and in terms of benefits, challenges and testimonials. So participant benefits, they were identified, self-identified by the participant, identified by the farmer and identified by the support worker. So we had 3 inputs in terms of for the participant, and they were broken down in terms of when I analysed the interviews, they came in under 3 broad themes, which are empowerment, inclusion and self-actualisation. So these were the 3 areas in which the participant, the farmer and the support worker identified benefits for the participant. For the purpose of this presentation, in terms of time limits, I'm going to focus on the self-identified benefits within these 3. So the benefits that the participants themselves identified. So there were 5 broad themes, and you can see in brackets at the end is where they link into the broader themes in terms of self-actualisation, inclusion and empowerment. So the participants themselves identified benefits in terms of their personal health and well-being, social inclusion, skill development, purpose and routine and progression. So I'll go through each individually, and really for each you'll see quotes from their interviews and from the farmers and from the support workers to evidence how they felt. So starting off with personal health and well-being, 23 participants directly stated that they felt there was some benefit to their personal health and well-being. As you can see, the top quote from Clifford, a participant, talks about, "Since coming here, my mental health's getting a lot better." The second quote talks about, "It keeps you healthy doing things, keeps your mind occupied, you have more confidence when you're working." So things about general well-being and health benefits. And then in terms of also personal responsibility, so Daniel, the participant, talked about getting a great sense of acknowledgement and responsibility for caring for animals. And the last quote is OT in the Western Trust, who talked about it was good for their mental health doing physical work and being tired at the end of the day, the value of doing work on the farms. So this is really, I felt it summed up the connection that the participants made with all the different animals on the farms. You can see Linda with the donkey, Stanley with the chicken, Robert with the dog who he always took a bar of chocolate out for, whether that's good or bad, he always did. And the last one on the bottom right, John on Dorothy's farm, he had a real connection with Star the horse. So moving on to social inclusion, 50 participants, so a real big proportion of the participants identified benefits towards social inclusion. The top quote is the focus on the relationship between the participant and the farmer. Jimmy talks about liking Barry, getting on with Barry, and feeling happy that he's working on the farm. And the second quote was, I think, particularly powerful because Daniel talks about being stuck at home and not having anyone to talk to, not having peers of his own age. And he made lots of new friends, and it became part of a family and a community by engaging on the farm. And then a support worker from the Southeastern Trust talked about giving them more confidence and ability to talk to other people that they wouldn't have had opportunity to engage with before. Mixing with other people, that was a big benefit from their point of view. And these are just some of the photos that highlight the connection that developed between the participant and the farmer. The top left one is probably the best. I think I became an amateur photographer across the whole project, but Jackie and Darren didn't know I was taking the photo, and I thought it was just a nice, Jackie's helping Darren walk across the field, and they're just talking to each other, and it's a nice, natural photo of the relationship that developed across the farms. And this was sort of reflective of the relationship that developed between the participants. In some cases, the participants knew each other from services, and in some cases they didn't. So they developed friendships and helped each other out, where some people were stronger in some areas. There was the reciprocal value between helping each other out. And then the home environment. The home environment was identified as being very important. So John's quote, I know John will be talking later, John talked about being welcomed by Richard and Jackie, who were the pilot farmers, and also by Richard's mother. So it was the wider family environment. And the bottom quote is Jonathan, who attended Natasha's farm in County Leitrim. He talked. His interview was done by proxy with his support worker, who talked about Jonathan becoming comfortable in Natasha's home, becoming engaged with the different elements that a home involves. And Jonathan, at that stage in his life, was moving from residential care into his own home. So then that sparked interest into buying curtains, buying things for his home that he had seen in Natasha's house. So a positive impact into his next stage of life. So this is just examples of all the the best part of the day, really. When I visited, I always made sure I was there for lunch. You can see Shane and the boys up in Betty's, and the fellas in Wilson's farm, and the fellas in Bullocks, and the bottom right, the participants and their support workers on the farm in County Louth. So that was a big part of the day, getting in, not rushing 10 minutes, having a proper sit down and talking about what they'd done and what they would do that afternoon. So, key points in the day. This slide is a snapshot from the observations that I conducted when I was out on the 20 farms. So, the top one talks about Dolan's farm in County Fermanagh. So, one day I was out and we had to go from the main farm yard down to a different field to feed some sheep. And Malachy took us down, and when we parked up, one of the neighbours came out, and he had CCTV cameras on his house, and Michael, one of the participants, got very interested in this and had to go in, and we had to wave at the cameras so he could see us outside, and there was just a natural engagement, and this neighbour had known the participants and made them feel welcome to the environment. And the bottom account is reflective of Eugene Mullen's farm in County Antrim. Eugene has parkland development in his farm, so the participants were taking their lunch in the bird hut when I was there that day. And they were talking about, there was a lot of slagging about local news and different things that were going on. And Eugene was talking about making plans for a Christmas party. And I said before about taking a leisurely lunch. There was one participant there who didn't wear a watch, but the minute you sat down to the minute you got up, he knew the length of time. So we were all chatting away, and Anthony was telling us to get up and get back to work. So just the different good points that happened within the day, in the natural day, that was evident across all 20 farms, but these are just a snapshot. So these are also photos about how the participants got involved, got engaged in their local community. The biggest photo shows the participants from Matthew McGreehan's farm in County Louth attending the sheep mart in Coot Hill, and I think they'd rechristened it Cooley Hill because they were all coming over that every week. And the top right photo shows Raymond at the open day in Barry's and saying a few words and taking ownership of what they had done on the project. And the bottom right is us outside waving in at the CCTV camera. And then the boys had to get their photo taken with the neighbour. So, moving back then, skill development was the next benefit that the participants identified themselves. They talked about learning skills or going back to skills that they had in the past but didn't have the opportunity to use. So a vast majority of the participants talked about skill development. Lawrence talked about learning something new every day. Raymond said he'd learned a lot. He talked about all the different things he got to do on the farm. Edward said, although he talked about different things he got to learn in terms of how to split sheep up, it was important that he said he learned to work in a team. So he was with his participant and the farm family and working as part of a team. So these are just examples of how the participants develop skills. So whether it was weighing sheep, dosing sheep, animal care, or feeding animals, all different skills that the participants got to learn or relearn. Again, the biggest skill maybe that Michael had was that he overcame his fear of the bull, and he christened the bull Michael, so we had two Michaels, and he talked to the bull and he became friends with the bull, and different skills in terms of stonework and clearing out hedges, dead hedging, different old skills that were brought back to the farm that the participants got engaged in. And then purpose and routine. 16 participants felt that the project, engagement in the project gave a purpose or a routine to their week. Linda talked about being more energetic, having something to get up for. That was important for her, one day a week. coming there to the farm. And Richard talked about something that it's better than having nothing in place. It gives you a push in other areas of your life, or you slip back to your old routine. So he felt it was important to have the base of the farm to move forward in his life. And a care assessment from the Northwest Parents and Friends felt it was something that it was great for the participants because their participants had farming backgrounds and it was allowing them to get back into that life. And Robert talked about the sense of achievement his participants got out of it. Malachy sat down for tea and said, I can't wait to get at that orchard. He wanted to get involved and wanted to lead the project in reclaiming the old orchard. So this slide, I don't know how much you can see in terms of light, just wanted to reflect the sense of ownership that the participants took on the farm. So the picture on the left is a bench that was erected at Barry's farm in County Cavan. So the participants' names are underneath the bench for the future, and that was the important thing for those. And the picture on the right shows Minister O'Neill's visit to Eugene's farm in August time. And the participants, we had a general hello with the Minister, and then the participants took her and showed her around the farm, and it was their story to tell, theirs and Eugene's. And progression. So the last self-identified benefit for the participants was progression, whether that was away from the farm in terms of that had been a spur in terms of they were now interested in that area of their life. Linda talked about doing a course related to animal or healthcare, or also on the farm. There was a lot of talk about wanting to come back to the farm at a different time of the year when lambing would be happening, or I nearly could write a thesis on the amount of people who talked about wanting to get involved in driving a tractor and stuff they didn't get to do the first time round. They were really engaged in wanting to talk about what they'd like to do. The top quote is from the support care worker for Damien McGuinness, so that interview was also by proxy. The lawnmower was a big thing for Damien. So starting from the beginning to the end, it was a real thing for him to want to use the lawnmower. So they were engaged with what they were getting to do on the farm, but also looking forward, wanting to stay on and wanting to do other activities. And then the next quote is from William McLaughlin, who talked about the progression that he's seen from day one over the length of the farm. He talked about being worried about the participants' mobility when they first came out, and then all of a sudden they were changing electric fences, they were, doing everything. And once they got that initial learning of the environment, they were able to do every activity. And then Michael Heslin talked about their social being, their ability to engage with people better from day one, where they were initially shy, they got to know people and they were engaging with members of the local community who called to the farm. So then, I've talked about the self-identified benefits, but there was also the main thing that came out of all the accounts was enjoyment. They enjoyed their overall experience and the different elements of that. So things like it was good crack. Padraig talked about the good crack. Kieran talked about he can chat to other people again, the ability to have a laugh with people again without having to have a drink. So it was getting him back into a social environment and enjoying himself. And this next slide just talks about the participants were asked to score. So 56 of the total 62 participants scored the different areas on the farm. So as you can see, a mean score out of 10. We had 7s and 8s, so they were all high up in terms of being outdoors, being in contact with animals, meeting new people, being on a farm, the horticulture projects, so all positive reinforcements of the different elements that they got involved in. And this series of photos just sort of tries to capture the enjoyment, the big smiles on the different participants when they were getting involved in the projects. And supporters also recognised that the participants enjoyed it. I think the top quote's very important, a very powerful message from an OT in the HSC who said it was the first time they got to see Jonathan smile and laugh. They sort of had looked around and wondered what was wrong because they had never seen Jonathan smile before, a natural smile. So that was a positive. When he was relaxed in that environment, it came out. And a parent talked about how he was happy going out to the farm. He's pleased with working with Seamus and his daughters, that he enjoys his experience on the farm. So now I'll move on to farmer benefits. These were identified by the farmers in terms of personal development and their work environment, and also benefits that were additional to their farm family and to their local community. So within personal development, The farmers talked about a feeling of reward, of helping others, of being part of the experience for the participants, of awareness of people's backgrounds before they come to the farm, of their capabilities. A real emphasis was on making the experience good for the participant, having a worthwhile, enjoyable time. Developing relationship with the participant, and also the opportunity to become a social farmer. So when you look at personal development, Desi talked about the sociable day. You benefit from seeing how they've improved and to see how they've grown as a person. So you're getting the benefit from the participant benefiting. And Eugene talked about how it showed him the hidden values of people that the participants lived in his local community, but he was actually getting to know them as people. And then Seamus talked about it being a learning process, coming from the farmer background into this social farming area, that he was learning as he went and developing skills in that area. And Liz talked about the project allowing her to develop in terms of being more communicative during your working day, thinking of different things, and allowing the last way to improve yourself and the way you're farming. So just sort of making you step back, look at what you're doing, think of things from the participant's point of view and how best to do tasks. So the next bit I focused on was the participant's experience and the farmers' interaction and involvement with that. From the logbooks, you can see I've taken a snapshot at day 3, day 11, day 18 and day 30 of Shane McDermott's logbook. So you can see at day 3, he's written that he's getting to know the fellas better. It's given him an insight into what they're interested in. By day 11, he's getting to know them better as the fellas are relating back stories to him. By day 18, the participants are given suggestions as to what they want to do on the farm. And I thought it was very powerful. The last words that Shane wrote in his logbook was, by day 30, he had made 2 new friends. So going from just getting to know the participants to building that friendship was a powerful journey for both the participants and the farmer. So the work environment, these 3 elements were benefits for the farmers in terms of help on the farm to do projects that you would otherwise not bother doing, having the company of someone working with you, and also slowing down. So as Dorothy says, the extra pair of hands enthuses you. It makes you engage in projects that you wouldn't do if you were on your own. And Mary's comment that she looks forward to the company because farming can be lonely, as Lorraine had talked about, the isolation that's there for farmers, and how Friday was a day that Mary looked forward to. And Natasha talked about learning to slow down, learning to appreciate the environment instead of running up the hill, feeding the cow and running back down, to stop and look around you and see what the participants are seeing. And Malachy and Miriam talked about having the day working together as a couple in a structured way, providing different elements of support to the participants in different areas of the farm. So then the farmers also identified the benefits for their farm. The top quote talks about Robert, his feelings that when it started, the farm itself had just been taken over, and this brought life to the farm. And it brought it something very different, but it made the farm what it was, back to what it had been when his father had farmed and when he had farmed before. And then the bottom quote talks about Matthew's feelings on the benefits for his family, that the children get to see them coming out as farmers, not as people with disabilities. And also, his children told me this themselves, that stuff happened when the participants were there. They got a horse out of it. So different things happened that maybe mightn't have happened because Matthew was too busy. It made him do the things. So this slide just talks about the engagement that the farm families had. So the main photo is Paul Kelly's father, where you can see he got involved in the old method of making jam that the participants enjoyed. You can see the different areas of sitting around the table with people who were aunts, uncles, like cousins, and they came once and then all of a sudden they kept appearing because they were having a great day out in the farm as well. So the different engagement that was there for the participants. And then the community. Larry talked about the project knitting people together, knitting his mother and father-in-law into the farm, knitting his neighbour George, who's 90. The participants got to know them, and there was that interaction, a social connectedness and a community connectedness. All the benefits I've talked long about. Hopefully I'm running out of time because I'm now going to talk briefly about the challenges, which were a smaller proportion of the research. But 19 participants talked about different challenges. Now, they were directly asked, what do you enjoy least about going to the farm? and 43 said nothing. So the vast majority had said nothing, but 19 talked about different elements of the farm day that they felt was difficult. Naturally enough, they talked about the weather, maybe not being so great. So you can see the photo of Stanley there in the lashing rain, and maybe you can't see, but he still has a big smile on his face. Different activities that maybe they enjoyed least in terms of the overall farm experience, which is understandable. PPE, wearing protective equipment. Some people didn't like having to wear all the gloves and the wellies and the coats. The muddy ground, the busy mart, the early morning starts, typical farming activities that it took them a while to adjust to. Communications up there for one participant who had the need of an interpreter and felt that there was a difficulty there on being on the farm without the interpreter. And the bottom one is payment. 4 participants had reservations about joining the project and not getting paid. They felt that was something that they had to get over. But those participants continued, and one participant said, I wouldn't have kept going if I didn't feel a worth in it. And he was able to use the farm as a stepping stone into employment. So he identified the benefit that was to his life. And then in terms of farmer challenges, fitting it into the farming week, how that works, making sure you're ready to go over Friday, all your other things out of the way, ready to have your day with the participants. Slight difficulties with participant attendance if that wasn't communicated to the farmer. If you were expecting 3 people and only 1 turned up, how do you deal with that? The balance between the farmer and participants. So the bottom strip of images is Dorothy engaging with her 3 participants on 3 different horses. So how you manage that, how you get the balance right to give support where needed. Participant feedback, where that maybe wasn't given directly to the farmers. They felt, oh, is he enjoying it? Or, there might be that slight reservation. Of course, the issue of payment in terms of getting valued for the time and the effort you're putting into the participants' day. And also slight challenges in terms of the paperwork that had to go through, in terms of regulations that we had to, in terms of their claim process. So the last part of my presentation will be testimonials, support for social farming, for the experience and for going forward. I'll talk about participants who were asked, would you like to continue, farmers, likelihood to continue and overall success of the project, and then supporter testimonials. So the participants were asked in their, that was the last question they were asked in their interview, would you like to continue? 54%, so the vast majority, 54 participants said they would like to continue social farming and gave a range of reasons that started off with the crack and enjoyment, learning new things, the experience, social inclusion, the improvements in mental health, the development of life skills, the environment, having a purpose and helping animals. So all different reasons why they felt they would like to continue. And Darren's quote at the bottom says, I just hope I continue with what I'm doing because I'm enjoying it and I feel very proud of myself at what I do, which is a powerful testimony of his experience. So the participants, again, Clifford talked about it being good for his mental health. The last large quote, and I try to avoid using large bulks of text, but John talked about how he was at a stage in his life where he was concerned about meeting new people, new situations, and the worries that were involved in that. But the social farm project allowed him to know what he was doing, for how long, having get-outs were possible, not being pressured, being open, knowing the participant. And for John, for him, he preferred when he was working in the tunnel on his own with the support of the farmer and the participant, but he had the lead on his project, so that worked for him. So likelihood to continue for the farmers. The farmers were asked to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. We got a mean score of 9.4, so pretty much nearly 10. There was slight issues in terms of they were wanting to give a 10, but they didn't know how it was sort of set up to move forward. So it was slight uncertainty of the future that caused them not to score 10. And overall success of the pilot, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, rated 8.9, which was also, they were judging it as successful as a pilot, but they wanted to see in the future where it goes in order to be able to judge it in terms of long-term success. So just a couple of quotes from the farmers that Ruth talked about it being a different routine for the individual. It gives them a window on farming life. It's a uniquely placed job to be on the farm, and it's like a halfway home, and it's not as confining as other environments. And for people with a social phobia, Ruth felt it worked. And Mabel talked about it giving smaller farms the opportunity to become more recognised in the rural community, going back to what the farms would have been like 170, 50 years ago. The lifeblood of the local community was the small farms. So Mabel and John on their farm in Plumbridge felt that that was bringing it back to their farm. And then testimonials from the supporters. Again, an OT from the Western Trust felt that the whole farm family being involved helped them being so accommodating to the participants' needs, and the key workers seen change. They seen that it met their needs, and they felt that it was a good opportunity because it ran for more than 6-7 weeks, that it was a good chunk of time for the participants. And the bottom quote is from a HSE mental health nurse who felt that it was a niche that needed filling in the community, and it was a welcoming and relaxed environment, and the link with the person, the link with the farmer was an important success for the project. So my last quote I'll give you is from a parent of a participant who attended, and I felt she just spoke very plainly. The first couple of words, just that it is done and good. He enjoyed getting up in the morning. He gets up in the morning for his normal service, but he enjoyed getting up for his day on the farm. He enjoyed having his week split between his normal service and having his day on the farm. And the parent was fully supportive of this being an opportunity for her son and being something that would be beneficial to his life. So the social farm model, this is what we found that works. For the participant to have choice, for the farmer to be engaged and obviously to want to do it, to have the characteristics to be engaged as a social farmer, to have the support of the farm family, to have a range of developmental activities on your farm, but also routine farm tasks, so that balance between big projects, small projects, and your normal everyday farming, to have a safe working environment, to have community engagement, and the last point, to have recognition for the farmer in terms of what they're putting into their day, and adequate remuneration for this, that they're valued for the work that they're putting in, and also recognition for the participant, what Anne-Marie talked about, progression, that it maybe is 6 months for one person and it's a longer term project for another person, that something is recognised for the input they're given to the farm and to their development as a person. And the last collage, I became very good at making collages as well, so it's all benefits. It's just, I had been snapping away, and when I went through the photos, amazing photos of the environment in which the participants were engaged in. So you had the view of the water in County Louth, and in the bottom right, the shore in Mount Charles in County Donegal, Malin Head on your bottom left, the sun coming up, and the mountain in Limavady, where Ruth and Daniel were placed. So the different environments that the participants got to enjoy. The best part of this job for me was my days out in the farm. Once I got to the farm, it was a release from your normal day, and you were getting to see the benefits firsthand that the participants were enjoying. So the last thing I have to do is just thank all the farmers. I know they signed up for it, but I was always calling in terms of questions, and they were very welcoming, and the 20 farms themselves are a testament that social farming works for the effort they had put in. And also a massive thanks, maybe a bigger thanks, to the participants themselves who engaged, who turned up every week and fed back such wonderful comments to the project team, and were supportive of each other's experience and of the farmer doing it for the first time and making it a good experience. And I feel, I just put the title of the conference back up there again, just to, as an end point, that I feel that the evidence base from the Social Farming Project proves that social farming connects people and improves lives. Thank you.